Lindsay Cummings, and the title of my book is Chosen But Silenced: The Journey to My Voice. It's actually in the design phase, the page design, so it should be out hopefully before Christmas. It's basically just a story of my life and some really horrible events that I had to endure, 5 to be exact, and how the experience silenced me. It made me into a human being that was really difficult to be around. I had so much trauma and really poor coping skills. So it's basically just a story of my life, what I went through, and how I found my way to the healing process. So it was really difficult. When I started writing the book, it was for the purpose of healing. I needed to write down the things that I had went through to try to process them so that I could get past the trauma. So each traumatic event that I wrote down, I would have to take a break and really process going through the whole thing over again. It was really, really, really hard. It took me like 7 years to write it because it just would put me in a state that it was hard to get past. But with each writing, I got a little bit more healing. Well, I know that there was 2 reasons. The first reason was for myself, so that I could process what I went through growing up and try to find a way to become a better human. And the second part was because I knew and I know that there are people out there that suffer every day, that go through trauma, that are tormented, that have poor coping skills because they were just trying to survive and nobody was there to help them through. So I wanted to kind of write it to show the process that I was going through so that I could help them, kind of guide them on the way, so that I just don't want anyone to suffer or for anyone to stay in that pain for an extended period of time. I want people to know that there is a hope and that they can find peace. Well, I think the book is probably for every human. One, because I don't know that I know one person who hasn't experienced some form of trauma and pain. And if you haven't, and you were really fortunate, it can help you to understand the people that have. So many times people they lack the empathy and the compassion that it takes to help people process what they're going through because they've never been through it. So maybe just opening their eyes to see their loved ones in a different light. Well, I guess for one thing, while some of the material is very, very hard to read, there are some assaults in there and some things that I had to go through. While they may be hard to read, they can also hear where I am now and what I went through and give them a hope that they can heal too. So if they can just read through some of the more, I don't want to say dirty parts, but harder parts to read, then they can get to the parts where there is a hope and you can heal and you can become better. I think so many people forget to self-reflect and we put all of our blame on the other person because they've hurt us and they've done this to us. But we forget to self-reflect and see what part we played and how our coping mechanisms may be triggered a whole nother set of issues. And so I think that healing starts with us first self-reflecting and trying to become a better person so that we can have the empathy that we need to help other people. Oh, absolutely. For me, God is everything. He's the beginning and the end. He's how I get through. But the book isn't just about that. The book is about trauma and how to process and overcome trauma, or at least start the process of overcoming your trauma. I am a firm believer that you do not have to stay the same. You know, people always say people never change. I don't agree. I think people change every day. They're on a continuum of changing. That's just how we are. You know, we can either get worse or we can get better. Very seldom do we just stay right where we're at. And so I think that this book resounds that. Like, it shows, yeah, I went through this hell and this really sucked, and I lost people that I loved, and I lost pieces of me, but I'm still standing here today, and you can too. I guess the only lighthearted part of the book, well, there's lighthearted parts of the book because it talks about me as a child with my family. It talks about the wonderful gift of my stepfather coming into my life and me starting to see that there is more out there. So there are some really positive jewels. Meeting my husband, that was something that was in there. My children are in there. So there are some really good jewels and gems throughout the book. It's not all trauma, but it's a little bit of both, the good and the bad, to show you what I've come through and to where I am now. Well, that's a hard question for me, because if you were to ask me direct like you just did, I would say I don't really have a lot to offer people. But that's my trauma. If I could get just one person to have hope, if I could give one person hope, then I've done what I've come to do. I've lived in a life of hopelessness. I've been suicidal. I have been lost. I have had so many traumas and so many trials that I just locked myself in the room and never came out. But if I could have just had one person to tell me that I'm not the only one that's been through this and that I wasn't alone, one person to care enough to help me process the information, then I feel like I've done what I've come to do. So if they could stop scrolling long enough to read or to listen to some of what I have to say, maybe they could get that hope. And maybe then they could take that hope to someone else. Like, pay it forward. Isn't that what this is all about? This universe. It's not about just me and sticking to what I need and what I want. It's about how can I better myself so I can help other humans be better humans, and we can all live in a world full of love. My least favorite part of the book would have to be that I haven't arrived. That I couldn't end it saying that I was 100% fixed and that I had all the answers to help. I just wish I could have given more, but it's a journey and this is the beginning for me. So if I had to say the least favorite part of the book, it would be that I couldn't give you more. Yes, these are real life events that happened in my life from the time I was in my mother's womb until about 6 years ago when I got really sick and started battling in my health. You know, I've always loved to write, even as a little girl. Normally I would only write when I was upset or angry, you know, like I'm going to write down I'm mad at everybody, whatever. And then as I got older, I went to college and for nursing, and I took English 102. I took English 101 and English 102. And in English 102, I had to do a lot of writing in the classroom on the fly when you walk in. You write, sit down, he gives you a topic and you write. And I found that it came naturally to me and I really enjoyed it. It was that teacher that told me, I know you're going to school to be a nurse, but I really think that you should be a writer. I kind of scoffed and was like, huh, because, you know, you don't ever see your own worth or your own value. I just didn't see it. And then when I got really sick in my health and there was nothing else I could do, I lost my job, lost everything. I just sat and started writing. I was like, something's got to give, something's got to change. And it just came out of me. I found that it is healing. It's cathartic. It feels great. It feels good to get your feelings and emotions out. I would suggest it for anyone. The way nursing is tied into the book would be that I was a workaholic and I worked a lot, and I didn't give myself time to heal and rest until finally my body started to attack itself. So it taught me that there was more, out there, and that I felt like so without being sick, I would have stayed as a nurse, right? And I would probably still be miserable to this day because there was so much more I wanted to do, and it locked me into one area. And then I got sick and that area left. I no longer was locked into that area, and then I was sad. And I lost my identity. I lost who I was because this thing that I worked so hard for, I no longer could do. And I remember just sitting in the room crying, saying, God, what am I here for? I can't be a nurse. I can't hardly walk. I'm in so much pain all the time. I'm exhausted. My hair is falling out. What am I here for? What am I supposed to do? And it was like he was saying, I want you to just rest. Rest in me. You're going to find your way. You're going to find your purpose. Don't worry about that right now. Just rest in me. And so it all started with nursing, and it ended with me, instead of just helping people heal their bodies with medicine, deliver babies, whatever it was I was doing at the time. Now I wanted to help people with their hurt. I wanted to reach people on a level that people weren't able to reach me on. Sure. About 7 years ago, I was working and my heart felt like it was beating out of its chest. I felt like I was going to pass out, felt like my eyes were bugging. And I was at work, so they hooked me up to a monitor, and my heart rate was going 175, 180 beats per minute. And I felt funny. So they did a whole bunch of tests, pulled me off from my shift, did a whole bunch of work, and it turns out that I had Graves' disease. Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease that attacks your thyroid. It also can affect your heart, can make you very anxious. And then I went to a specialist, and they did more tests, and they found out that I apparently had Hashimoto's first, and when undiagnosed, untreated, led to Graves' disease. So there was a lot of scar tissue, a lot of nodules, and because of all of the scar tissue, they decided that there was so much damage that there wasn't much that they could do, but just try to manage my symptoms with medicine. I opted out of surgery. Then that led to one morning on August 28th, I woke up. I was in so much pain. I couldn't close my hands. I was just crying in pain. I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. I couldn't close my hands. Went to the doctor. Turns out I had fibromyalgia. I started having burning and pins and needles throughout my whole body. Turns out I had neuropathy. Then we went to the doctor, and I went from 2 herniated discs in my spine to 9 with spinal stenosis and breaking down of all my facets in it's a degenerative disease in the spine, which was causing all the issues with the pain and the neuropathy. Then fast forward it, I started puking every day. Couldn't keep my stomach down. I went from like 180 pounds to 122 pounds in a month. It was bad. Turns out that I have gastroparesis and my stomach won't empty. So they had to put me on some medicine for that. So it's like a culmination of like, for the last 6-7 years, just battling with my health and trying not to let me get me down and not to depress me. But it's hard when some days you can't get out of bed because of pain. It's hard when some days your anxiety and your depression is so high that you can't come out of your room. I battle and with mental health tremendously. Intrusive thoughts, dissociation, they're all coping mechanisms. They're all ways that I'm trying to cope with the things that I feel, but they're not good coping mechanisms. So my doctor told me that he felt like I had had these illnesses since I was young and asked me if I had endured any trauma. I was confused because he's an endocrinologist asking me about trauma. And it turns out that studies show that autoimmune disease is rooted from trauma and self-hate. So then that started me on this journey of writing down my feelings, processing, going to therapy, really digging deep and trying to self-reflect and become a better human for my family and for the world. And to give hope to people that you can overcome. Sure. So I was one of these people. I was raised that therapists, psychiatrists, all of these things are bad. Medicine is bad. All of it's bad. And I'm not here to say either way. I'm not here to say medicine's good, medicine's bad, therapy's good, therapy's bad. I'm here to tell you what worked for me. I found a therapist who was a believer and who I can relate with, that is helping me step by step process and go through things. I see her every week. Was twice a week. Now I just see her once a week for an hour. And it has done me, oh my gosh. Okay, so if you're trying to do it alone without a therapist, there's skills, there's coping mechanisms, there's all this data that is used that can really help you to overcome trauma, to be a survivor and to not be the victim anymore. And I just feel like I would not have been able to process or be where I am today if I didn't have a therapist that could walk me through it. Because let's be honest, I'm 43 years old. I hadn't been able to process not a lick up until this point. But with her help, I have been able to heal. It's been a slow journey. It's been hard. She gives me homework. There's things I have to do that are uncomfortable. But in the end, life is better. So I say, if you don't want to do a psychiatrist because you're afraid of the medicine or you're afraid of whatever you're afraid of, find a therapist. Find a therapist who you could just talk to and process. It may take a few before you find the right one, but you need help. Sometimes you just can't do it alone. They have tools that we don't have. Sure. So I met my husband when I was 13 years old. His name is Ravi. And we got married when we were 15, 2 years later. We've been married for 28 years. I have 4 beautiful children. Love them. They are the loves of my life. I would do anything for my family. In fact, this book partly is for them because I feel like my children deserve a better version of me than what they got when I was broken. And I feel like my husband deserves a better me because he's a really good husband and he treats me really well. And I want to give him the best me. We just do life. We just do life. My husband plays music. I try to be a part as much as I can. My kids are all grown now, so they're starting to leave the house, which is making me a little sad. We all have our issues from trauma growing up, me being a kid trying to raise my kids. I hope that when they think of me, that it's good thoughts. Lord willing, I do want to write more books, but they have to be inspired. I don't just do things just to do them. So that book, there was a purpose and a reason. So whenever I get another purpose and reason, I'll write again. Hopefully soon. So yes, it will be on multiple platforms. It will also be on ebook. I think we're doing a audiobook as well. So I feel like you'll be able to get it in numerous places. Also, when Robbie goes to minister, he'll be taking books with him to sell. So I think as long as everything goes the way it's planned, you should be able to find it in numerous places.
Can you tell us about your teen pregnancy?
Well, I was married at 15. My parents were pastors. My husband's parents were pastors or music ministers. And I got pregnant out of wedlock. We got married. And we never looked back. She's 28 years today. I mean, she's 28 years old now.
How many years have you been married?
28 years. So, right? Yeah, that's right. I think she's 28. Or 27, around that.
I really don't think she's 28.
I don't know. I don't know. The book is called Chosen But Silenced, The Journey to My Voice.
Coming 2024?
Coming 2024.
I think that's good.
Okay. Make it look good now, because I'm ridiculous.